Hey everybody, how's it going this week? Well, first things first, a quick announcement. The Ursa Majors voting ends today! It ends today! Today is the last day you can vote for your favorite stuff in the furry, that was part of the furry fandom, your best or even non-furry fandom stuff, best anthropomorphic stuff you found that you liked in 2018 that were nominated for 2018. Remember, if you don't see things that you don't, if you thought of something in 2018 that you didn't see nominated, remember to nominate in 2019 so that you can see the things that you like on there as well. If you don't know how to vote in the Ursa Majors, I have a video on that topic, and it's up in the card above there that you can click on and watch that video on how to do it. Should only take a few minutes, and the more votes, the better, because the more votes means that the better stuff will get out there and the better stuff will be voted for. As a full disclaimer, there are a few things from this channel that are nominated. Whether you vote on those or not, up to you. Obviously, I'm gracious for the support. There are a lot of other good videos in that particular category. They were all videos in the nonfiction one this year. No writing, which kind of concerns me a little bit. Like, I'm a writer too, man. I want to see love for my written articles next year. Or love for anybody's written articles next year. Written articles that, because nonfiction is also writing. It's not just videos, man. Even though videos are the popular things, I'm guessing. But yeah, if you have the time, go ahead and do that. Vote for whoever you think is the best. There's some very good quality videos that I'm up against. Some from the Culturally Effed guys, CNN. Lisa Ling, that whole like life in the thing of Lisa Ling's up for vote, and the other one was Down the Rabbit Hole, which is a non-furry YouTuber talking about the internet histories of the furry fandom, which I found very well done too. Those 5 are up for nominations. Two of my videos on the nonfiction section. For the best magazine section, also as a disclaimer, the website that I work for as an editor, Flera, is up for nomination in that category. Also up for nomination are the South Afrifur podcast, the Moms for Furries, as like, sort of a smidgen of things, Dog Patch Press, and I think Culturally Effed. So I think those. So Culturally Effed and I we're rivals right now. But I do appreciate the work that they do, and I appreciate the work that everyone does in the nonfiction categories, because the biggest thing to me about nonfiction is to get in good information out there, and if it comes from somebody else other than me, great, because that means I don't have to do all the work, right? Like, if other people have other organizations that they want to try and inform furries on other topics that I don't have time to cover or aren't covered by myself, all the better, in my mind. So, go support those guys, and we're going to actually talk about what we're actually going to talk about today, which is one of our other furry sites here. So those of you who ever use SoFurry, the anthropomorphic website of, basically it's more writing focused than others, but that's because of its legacy. So there are multiple furry art social sites. I call them art social. There's also art, but less social. So like, there's different varieties. Like, for instance, art with less social aspects to it would be like an E621 or an F list. Like, things that are more thread based. And here's a bunch of images. Here's an image dump of stuff that happened today, with a comment section, but not really too much in the way of like. Helping people, communicate with individuals, or like if you wanted to find an individual artist, utilizing those kind of sites, you can find their art, but you're not going to really find anything about their news or anything. The artist doesn't really have much say, other than if you can post their stuff or not. So you have those kind of sites, but you also have what I call the furry social sites, which are an artist creates a profile and they put their stuff up on the site themselves, and then their followers will come and watch and wait for updates from them themselves and things like that. Fur Affinity is the most well-known one of those. Ink Bunny is kind of going up in the ranks. I think it's the second most at this point. SoFurry is kind of the third most. Then you got Weasel and Furry Network. And I think those are the big five. There might be other ones that are kind of smaller, but those are sort of the big five. Interestingly, they all have their kind of different rules and focuses and sort of the different directions in which they want to take the community. Fur Affinity's kind of always been like the big dog who's mainly focused on art and all this other stuff, and kind of became the leader of the pack, and is now owned by like a social media platform called IMVU. There's Ink Bunny is owned by Green Reaper, and they obviously have a niche audience that was sort of created because of the original platform owner wanted particular kinds of content about younger characters, younger furry characters being in situations that other sites were starting to go, no, that's no good. Like other, we're starting to, it's hard for us to viably sell. Like basically, I think the big reason Fur Affinity, axed cub situations from their site was because they wanted to make their site sellable to a third party because they were looking to sell, because they sold it to IMVU eventually, so it makes sense that they would want to try to make their it's like it's hard to market it enough as it is because it's a furry website and it has adult situations on it, trying to make it so that it's making sure to separate those things and make sure not to have like really questionable content. I think that was kind of the reason they went that direction. Payment services were looking at those kind of situations with a real sketchy eye. Which interestingly, when Ink Bunny first came up as a thing, I do recall that they did have a way to sell prints. Like you could like literally buy prints of people's artwork, and then like the artist would get. Their idea was like the artist would get a cut, and the site would get a cut, and it'd be cool. But that ended up falling through when, payment processors were like, well, this has adult content like this, and we're not comfortable with that. So after that, it's like that whole feature just kind of went and fizzled. So that's sort of Ink Bunny's history. Weasel was sort of coming up as a competitor against. They wanted to be like a DeviantArt, I guess, competitor. It never really established an identity of what makes Weasel special, right? In my mind. So I think it's like, even though I actually backed it as a disclosure, because at the time it was like there wasn't that many Anthro websites, and I wanted a different one other than Fur Affinity, and I wanted some competition. And unfortunately, it's like they didn't follow through. Just as a disclaimer, they didn't follow through with those promises either, like those backer promises. Like he was like, oh, you can get a sticker pack, or like it was like, you contribute $50 and you can get like a sticker pack thing for your something. Like you can get like a little icon thing, and like I never got it. Like I never pushed the issue, but like it was like, it is what it is. So then they have the next one, which is Furry Network, which its biggest thing is trying to get a furry marketplace going, where you can easily commission people with the click of a button, figure out who's open, who's not open, what's up for sale, what's not up for sale, making it easier for people to, buy and window shop in the furry fandom, which is a big thing, which I talked about in another video. So SoFurry's history has to do with the fact that it was called Yifstar. Yeah, okay, I said it. Yifstar, when it was first found, and its biggest claim to fame at the time was basically being like an adult fanfiction.net, but basically not really fanfiction, but an adult sort of place where people could write adult fiction, right, and things like that. And that was its biggest claim to fame. So that sort of stuck with it, even though it changed its name to SoFurry to be a little bit more, I guess, friendly, or a little more like, because the Y word, the Yif word, has sort of fallen out of the fandom's favor as kind of closure and cliche. And that mostly happened because that's the word that the mainstream media sort of latched onto. It's like, oh, that's a "Yiff, that's a furry word. Oh my gosh!" And it's like it's kind of one of those things where it's like when it's an in joke and people are using the word, in between people within a certain subgroup, and then like the adults, the people outside of the group learn what that word means, and it's like, that word's kind of anymore. It's no longer hip, daddy-o. That word's no longer in the bee's knees, if you know what I means. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's sort of like that sort of thing where it's like, oh, now that everyone knows what that word is and what it means, like people will not usually use it in a normal social context like they used to. It would be more like, oh, it's sort of like, oh, that word is so 2000 and 2000, man. That word's so 2000. Now the word's glomp. No, I'm just kidding. So basically, they decided to update their name. And as they updated their name, they also kind of like tried to move towards a more general art site, and it's kind of worked for them a little bit. Like other artists, like I know Spelunker Sal likes to use it more than any other site. There's some furry artists who enjoy using that site, but unfortunately for them, this whole wraparound of all this other stuff, basically this week has not been a good week for SoFurry. Usually when we joke about websites being down, it's usually for affinity, because most people see when Fur Affinity goes down, and it really is crippling to like the furry economy to have, and social media to have Fur Affinity go down. Not as much as it used to be, in my mind. Like we have different like places like Telegram, Furry Amino, Twitter. We have a lot of different social places where we can like gather around and talk about things outside of Fur Affinity. I myself don't use Fur Affinity so much for social interaction anymore. It's very rare that I do. I do go back to it every once in a while, like to see what the latest artworks are and things like that. And it is still sort of the mainstay for that regard. But as far as like interacting socially with other furries, Twitter is actually probably the biggest one here, and obviously I have a platform on YouTube now. So like those are my mainstays. Interestingly, like non-furry sites are now sort of the social media that I use. When back in the day, like furry social media, I think that's why furry social sites have been having a little bit of a harder time these days, is that actual social media sites are actually a lot more better to reach a larger audience, even furry or non-furry, than it used to be. So that being said, so what's been going on with SoFurry? Well, SoFurry's been down for about a week, and it's probably going to be about a week. It's said that they're going to be up in about a few... it should be up in a few days. It should be up before my next video goes up. It should be sometime this week, I'm hoping. But basically, they've been having server issues and other things such as that. So you've been probably seeing this this squirrel icon when you go there right now. They have like this sort of squirrel thing that says like I've been eating the cables and things like that, and chewy cables. And then they joke about the squirrels getting into their system. But on social media, they talk about the reasonings that this is occurring. So here they talk about like the good news about them trying to upgrade their stuff, and the bad news is that the old stuff sort of fell apart before they had a chance to get the new stuff in there, things like that. And then they had like somebody at the service center troubleshot their thing, and they didn't quite troubleshoot the right things, so they found, like, it's like, oh, well, this is the thing that's bad. Okay, cool, we'll replace that. And it's like, oh, wait, actually, it's this thing, which is a very important node on their system, apparently, to get it to talk to the internet. So basically, their website has been down, and this was on March 24th when they were discussing that. And then we discussed this here about SoFurry's update here. Basically, they're saying that they ordered the replacements, and it's going to be faster shipping, but it's going to be a few business days before they get up there. And I think this one was made on, having these numbers memorized would be helpful, because can't read it, but I think it was like late last week. I think it was like the 27th or something. So basically, it's going to be up probably sometime this week, hopefully, and SoFurry will do that. But it is sort of a difficult thing running a furry site. There's I mean, there's not only like the whole social interaction things that you got to deal with, interpersonal issues, claims of, theft and bullying and harassment and all those other things. Those are the things we're very well aware of situations like that when running a furry website, is the interpersonal conflicts that can occur. They happen on the largest websites. They happen on the smallest websites. What we don't really think about all too much is like the infrastructure that really goes into running these sort of things, and how expensive they are, how much they cost. I think on the long run, a lot of times the furry fandom doesn't quite realize, and I think that's sort of a shame, that they don't quite realize it's like how much of an expense running a large website like that can be, like renting of servers and upgrading software and systems and getting things all to go. And a lot of furries do things voluntarily for the community, which certainly helps obfuscate costs. But at the same time, the that having that blinding sort of cost evaluation thing to furries makes it so that if somebody wants to try their hand at doing that, they get kind of sticker shocked when they try to go about doing these kind of things or creating these kind of sites. And hopefully, and as the community comes to things, there are always going to be people who donate to their favorite furry websites. And by the way, if you want to donate to SoFurry, they have offered a donation button. Most furry websites have an offering of donations in which they can run. I don't think Fur Affinity can anymore, though, because they are now a privately owned company and a privately owned thing. I'm sure furries are going to be very hesitant to sort of donate to Fur Affinity for upkeep costs, since they have an actual corporate sort of backing now. Whereas other furry websites that are owned by individuals, that are run by a small team of volunteers, it really does. Now, whether or not, I don't know, but I think Fur Affinity still has volunteers running in moderation and things like that. Which, if they do, I'm not a lawyer, but I don't think that's optimal, or I should say ethical, or maybe even legal. I don't know. But when it's oh yeah, this person's running this site and we want to run this community, and you want to run this community in spare time, having volunteers, it's kind of fine, because we're not, the individuals who run them aren't the richest people in the world, or so we're told. But usually the people who run furry websites are middle class, if at best. Which to some groups of furries might appear very rich, but they're not. So they have to rely on people in the community to help moderate their sites and things like that. But hardware is hardware. You have to pay for the hardware, and if your hardware is the thing that peters out, then that's a needed expense. That is an expense that the person who owns the site has to pay in order to keep the site running, because there's a lot of data going in and out, there's a lot of information, lots of pictures going in and out and up and down all across the things. And so always show your support, or not show your support, but always show appreciation that we have the variety of sites that we have from all these people who put their money and their sweat and their labor into it. Even if you disagree with how certain sites run their business, you have to appreciate the amount of effort that goes into those kind of things. But obviously, to make a better community, we always have to open our eyes and have the ability to critique people, even though they're expending a lot of money and a lot of effort, keeping these things up. Feeling free to critique them when you feel they're wrong, or feeling free to do that, but doing so in the right manner, and doing so remembering that there's a lot of effort that goes behind these kind of sites. So hopefully SoFurry will deal with their squirrel crisis, and we'll be back online sometime this week. Not too much else crazy going on right now, so that's it for this week. Thank you very much for listening to this Rue Ramble. Kick that like, kick the subscribe button, kick a comment in the comment section. Are you a normal user of SoFurry? And if so, what have you been doing? Have you done any like what are you doing now in your spare time instead of going to SoFurry? Have you looked into other furry communities such as Furry Aminos or their Minecraft server is something that SoFurry had suggested is that they apparently are running a big Minecraft thing. It's kind of a weird thing to have in conjunction, but yeah. So what have you been using as opposed to SoFurry, and you're using until SoFurry gets back up? I'm very curious as to what your responses will be, or if you're not a big user of SoFurry, then I guess why do you prefer something else other than SoFurry? But anyways, I'm gonna get the hop out of here. Thank you very much again for watching, and I'll see you guys next week. And remember, votes in the Ursa Mages. Votes. You only have today to do it. Get to it. Get to it now. Get to it now. Do it now. Get out there. Your time is running out. Get to the chopper. You get to the chopper. Wow. Why did I end on that? Blah.